Okay, guys, we have a lot to talk about today. With me today, sitting down with me, is a special guest. He is a Republican congressman from the great state of Florida, Carlos Gimenez. Congressman, thank you for joining me. I appreciate you being here. All right, Congressman, you're one of the few members of Congress to travel to the border, as shocking as that sounds, since everyone should be there. Let me ask you this. Did you see anything while you were on the border that is not being covered by the media?
Well, yeah, I think, the mainstream media doesn't cover the fact that, you have so many people coming through and they kind of downplay it. Also, that 140,000 I talked about is just in that sector. They really estimate like 500,000 that they know they haven't apprehended. And then I asked one of the heads there. I said, okay, that's 500,000 that that you didn't apprehend. You saw them, et cetera, and you couldn't do anything about it. How many people don't you not know about? In other words, they completely evaded all your systems. Oh, he says at least double that. So you've got 1 million people coming in the United States we know nothing about. We don't know who they are. We don't know where they're going. We don't know why they're here, and where they're going to end up. And so on top of the 2 million people that we do apprehend, and then they're coming in the United States.
And the number that you mentioned, it just astounds me. I think a lot of voters don't realize that between 500,000 and 1 million illegal aliens who cross the border actually get away. They are not apprehended by Border Patrol. They are not sent back, that they melt into the shadows of the United States. And we don't know who is among that. I'm sure there's well-meaning people among that. I'm not trying to castigate everyone, but there's also cartel members and human traffickers and drug traffickers and potentially terrorists. And they're in our cities and in our neighborhoods, and it's terrible. Did you see anything that you would describe as being particularly shocking? What were you most shocked by seeing?
Well, I mean, being a Cuban, that I shocked at how many Cubans are crossing the border. There are actually more Cubans crossing the border now than we had in Mariel. And I was around in 1980 when we had 130,000 migrants coming into Miami. All right. And then one thing that shocked me too was, and I sent a letter to Secretary Mayorkas, is there was a report that they were sending people, from DC and all down to Miami. All right. And so I'm asking, hey, are you sending people down to Miami? And if you are sending people down to Miami, do we know about it? And because we know the kind of pressure that it was put on the system when we had the Mariel boat lift. And now we know for sure that more Cubans have crossed the border than we had in the Mariel boat lift. Most of them are going to end up here in Miami. Venezuelans are coming through the southern border. Most of them are going to come here to Miami. And I represent Miami. I used to be the mayor of Miami-Dade. And so I know exactly the kind of pressures it puts on our system. This totally open border thing. And, it was all caused by Biden, and it was all caused by the change in policies. And so the Cubans that used to cross, the straits, which is a very perilous journey, and thousands died trying to reach, America. They now go to Nicaragua to look at the volcanoes. Okay. And then they pay the Nicaraguan government, they pay the Cuban government, they pay the coyotes, and then they pay the cartel. And we estimate the cartel is now making $13 billion a year on human trafficking, much more than they ever made on drugs. And then on top of that, we have the drugs. The drugs, what drugs are coming through? Fentanyl, which is, there's enough fentanyl to kill us all about 100 times going through the border. And by the way, that's not being facetious. 100 times is probably a low estimate of how much fentanyl is crossing in that could kill all of us, every single American, 100 times over. Produced in China, flowed through the cartels. It's really almost like a declaration of war, because we've had over 100,000 people die of overdoses in the United States last year, many of them caused by fentanyl. And so we have thousands and thousands of Americans, hundreds every day, thousands every month, dying from fentanyl overdoses manufactured in China and transported through with the help of the cartels.
You mentioned that this is due to the policies of the Biden administration, which is clearly true. Why do you think the Biden administration is doing this?
It's on purpose. You can't be that dumb. I mean, we know what policies work. I mean, the Trump era policies worked. They had 90% reduction in illegal immigration during the Trump era, especially after the Remain in Mexico policy. Once they lifted that Remain in Mexico policy, then everybody knew that, hey, we've got a different president. Now it's an open border, come on through. And so they know what they have to do. Customs and Border Protection agents, I've been there 3 times. They tell us the same thing. What do we need to do? Need to finish the wall that was approved. And that will funnel the migrants into a certain area that we're weak then can handle it. Well, instead of finishing the wall, the Biden administration paid the contractors not to finish the wall. So basically, you're getting paid with all the material there not to finish the wall. You took away the Remain in Mexico policy, and then basically, boom, and then everybody's coming through. They're overwhelmed. They need more agents because they're being overwhelmed. A lot of their agents now are instead of being in the street or on the frontier, they're actually then have to process all these folks. So they got less agents, covering the border. They need more technology, all of that to control the border. But if you don't want to control the border, you might as well not spend anything because they're not controlling the border. The whole idea is not to control the border.
Do you want to issue an invitation to any of your Democratic colleagues in the House of Representatives to join you and visit the border?
Well, I guess when we take control of the House, hopefully in January, we will have Codels, and I'll definitely, I'm on Homeland Security, so I'll ask our chairman to, hey, let's have more Codels. Like I said, I've been there 3 times. There's only, I think, one that's been down there that he actually has a portion of the border himself. And he's kind of upset about what's happening, but hey, he votes for the Democrats all the time. He can't say, well, I'm not in favor of this. Yeah, you are, because you vote in favor of all this stuff and you support the president. And the president, his policies, and Secretary Mayorkas, I don't care what they say. Secretary Mayorkas is just like Biden. Don't listen to what he says. Watch what he does. And President Biden, the same thing. Don't listen to what he says. Okay. Most of the time, what he tells you, he's doing the opposite. And so I listen to President Biden a lot. Okay, what's he saying he's going to do? Oh, okay, so he's actually going to do the opposite. Okay, because whatever he's saying, he's doing the opposite. And so the same thing with Mayorkas. He said that, oh, well, the border is under control. The border is not under control. If he calls that under control, I'd hate to see what out of control is. Okay, because then we're talking about 10 million, illegal immigrants coming into the country.
It's shameful, and it's hurting the American people, and I think that you were correct. They're doing it on purpose. By the way, for everyone watching, if you want to get exclusive early access to interviews just like this one, you can join the Liz Wheeler Show community on Locals. It's lizwheelershow.com/locals, and you'll get exclusive early access to interviews just like this. Okay, Congressman, I want to get to what's happened at Mar-a-Lago this week. I think the American public, at least gauging from the reaction that I saw on Twitter, on cable news, all the text messages from family, friends, political colleagues, people were really shocked and really horrified that the FBI raided not only a former president, but a man very likely to be the nominee for president in 2024 for the Republican Party. How do you actually fix this? Because if this is a matter of just the upper echelons of the FBI being corrupted by ideologues, just the political appointees, if you will, then it should be as simple as playing whack-a-mole and getting rid of them. But we've tried that. We know that that's not the case. President Trump actually fired the head of the FBI, as you know, James Comey. And, look what we have now. It didn't work. So how do you fix this when it's so deeply ingrained that not only are they raiding a former president, we saw that training document from within the FBI. It was released by Project Veritas last week that showed that the FBI was identifying, quote unquote, militia violence extremists, people who support the Second Amendment or who fly the Betsy Ross flag or the Don't Tread on Me flag, that this is the same organization that's gone after parents. How do you fix it?
You have to fix it. I mean, look, you got to change the culture. We have to be in power more than 4 years. All right. Because remember, it took 8 years for Obama to infiltrate it and to really change the culture in there. We got to be in power for more than 4 years to really change change the leadership, change the culture of the entire organization. So the leadership of it doesn't have to lie in the administration. It should. And so should the lead, law enforcement agency in the United States be beholden to one individual, and it should be as apolitical as possible. And now we're getting into an era where everything is political. Before it was pretty clean, okay, until a certain point, until I think the Obama administration really politicized it. We may need to look at where the DOJ and the FBI, who they report to, et cetera. But do we need a law enforcement agency, a federal law enforcement agency? Yeah, it needs to be depoliticized. How do you do that? You get rid of leadership. You put new leadership in. You put new restrictions or put new rules on how people are hired. So that's not hired on ideology. They're hired on merit. And that when they take that oath, it's to protect the Constitution of the United States. It's about protecting the Constitution of the United States. It's not about protecting the Constitution of the United States and Democrats. Okay, it's about protecting the Constitution of the United States, no matter what, and prosecuting people, no matter who. All right, and so yeah, is it going to be is it going to be hard? Yeah, it's going to be hard, but it needs to get done.
Let me ask you this: should Merrick Garland be impeached?
I believe so. So, I think that he's demonstrated he's complete, at this point, he seems to be very completely political in his application of justice. And so if we can get him in front of the Judiciary Committee and he needs to, like Kevin McCarthy said, clear your calendar and make sure you save all your documents because he's going to be hauled in front of Congress if we take over. And I think we're going to take over, next January. And I expect Jim Jordan to put him through the grill and find out why he did certain things. Why did he, treat the president, former president, in this manner? I actually don't believe they were actually going for documents. I think they're on a fishing expedition looking for other stuff and using that document search as an excuse to get into Mar-a-Lago and look for other things that they can, incriminate him with. Or, and here's the other thing too, nobody saw what they took out. So now we have to take the word of the FBI or DOJ. Oh, by the way, look what we found. Well, how do we know you found it there? Because, the attorneys weren't there to see you take whatever it was that you took. And so, again, that's the erosion of the confidence that we should have in the DOJ and the FBI. And right now, at least 50% of Americans have zero confidence in DOJ and the FBI.
Yeah, it's a sad state of our country. I mean, I'm shocked that the FBI didn't show the warrant to Trump attorneys at Mar-a-Lago when they were serving this. They just flashed it from 10 feet and they refused to turn this over.
I do believe you have the right to look at a search warrant. Somebody just can't say, yeah, I got a search warrant. No, you should be able to look at it. The attorney should be able to look at it and determine what exactly that search warrant says, what it allows you to do, inside your house. And if somehow now somebody can just come up with a search warrant and say, "Boop, here we go," and we're going to tear up your entire house. That's not right. That's not right. And I expect that we would do something about that. The entire operation needs to be reviewed to its legality and the rights of a former president, but more the rights of everyday common citizens. Okay, need to be protected because President Trump was a former president, but he's a citizen of the United States of America. And if the FBI can just come into your house and say, here's a search warrant, and now we're going to do whatever we want, I don't think that actually is what our Constitution says has to happen. So, again, we got to take a look at all the evidence, and hopefully when we take control of the House, we can take a look at this incident and how did the FBI manage this, and then how did the FBI manage the Hillary Clinton affair? 33,000 emails that were subpoenaed, and all of a sudden they were hammered away, and nothing happened. Classified material. So there is a double standard. What's going on with the Hunter Biden laptop? Which, by the way, everybody says Hunter Biden. It's not Hunter Biden. That laptop implicates the big guy. All right. The big guy happens to be the president of the United States. Okay. So all of that and this unequal application of investigations and, search warrants and all that stuff.
Do you think the Democrats plan to arrest and indict Trump?
Look, they impeached him twice. And then the second time I happened to be there, it was, why are they impeaching the president? Oh, because we have to get him out of office, before he does further damage. I said, well, you can't get him out of office before he actually leaves, which is in like 7 days. So what's this all about? It was just a show trial, and they impeached him anyway on very, very flimsy charges. And you don't impeach a president, in 3 days, for God's sakes. And so, yeah, when I even talk to Democrats like in the street, I mean, real diehard Democrats, they have complete, TDS. Okay, complete TDS. They still talk about President Trump, and I say to them, it's not about Trump. It's actually about Biden right now. Okay. So, he's the ex-president of the United States. Okay. We have problems right now with the current president of the United States, and they still want to go back to him. They're obsessed with him. And so, yeah, do I believe they want to do that? Yeah, I do. I believe they want to do that. That's very troubling to me. Look, I came from Cuba. I fled here to find freedom. And some of the stuff that I'm seeing is very, very worrisome to me.
It's a terrifying prospect. Congressman Carlos Gimenez, thank you, sir, for sitting down with me. This was a very interesting conversation. I appreciate you taking the time to be here. If you haven't already, give this video a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button below, and ring the bell to make sure you never miss a video.